Welcome back to the Amid the Mess podcast, where we talk about how you can do the healthy things or the things that make you happy amid the mess and the chaos that is life. How to leave behind perfection so that you can actually do the stuff. And today I spoke with Joanna O'Donoghue, who has had Crohn's disease for over 40 years, but she has always had a passion for traveling. And so she has traveled a lot. She's had loads of adventures despite having really debilitating Crohn's disease. But she's found a way of doing it because she didn't want to not live her life. And she's written a book about it called Gutsy Travels. So today I chat with Joanna about why she's written this book and about her adventures and a little bit about the mindset behind being able to do these things despite the limitations and challenges of a chronic disease. This episode is not necessarily for anyone with Crohn's disease, although it is super relevant. If anyone has Crohn's disease, get them to listen to this. But it's relevant to all of us who feel a little bit limited by limiting beliefs in our head, or another physical challenge we might have, or a psychological challenge we might have, that we can't go out and travel, or we can't go do this particular thing. So it's worth listening just to perhaps try to reframe the limits we set on ourselves and try to realize that maybe there are less limits than we think. So, without further ado, I hope you enjoy this episode. What are the biggest misconceptions about what life is like when you're living with Crohn's disease?
Well, I think when I talk to people about having Crohn's disease, they often say to me, "Oh yes, I've got IBS or I've got something," and it's not the same really. So, and I'm not diminishing IBS at all, but it is a very different condition. But people link the gut with that kind of, oh yeah, I know what you mean. So you get a bit tummy ache sometimes, do you? Or something like that, or you get a bit of discomfort. Well, no, it's not that at all. It's a very difficult condition to live with on a daily basis, and I'll probably be talking about that later. But yes, So, and you don't end up having major surgery and colostomy bags if you have IBS, whereas with Crohn's disease, there are all kinds of things that might happen to you. So it's very different. So I think the thing is, Crohn's can be very mild and it can be extremely severe. And I think that's what people don't always understand. There seems to be, in this world now, everybody knows somebody with Crohn's disease, which wasn't the same when I was diagnosed at all. So everybody thinks they're an expert because they've got an auntie who's got it. or something, or a neighbour or somebody who thinks they've got it. So there are a lot of misconceptions and misunderstandings because people just don't know. And for me, my main thing is I want to expand people's knowledge about it, really, which was, one of the reasons for writing the book, not the only reason. But I think there needs to be a greater understanding of what the condition is, because it's, there's a lot of people with it, and it's an incurable illness. It's with you forever. So it's important that people know and don't underestimate what it is, really.
And it's not just a tummy ache or just one day of bad diarrhea. It's
constant. It's just you live with it constantly.
Yeah. So
and
the other thing, to you.
Yeah, I will say one thing actually. Sorry, the unpredictability of it is actually something that's really difficult to deal with, because you can be okay for ages and you can think, I'm cured, but I'm okay. Then suddenly it comes from nowhere for whatever reason. You can never work out why. That's what's happened with me. I don't know if I've eaten something, if I've been stressed, if, I don't know. And it's suddenly, you find yourself in hospital on a drip and really seriously poorly. So you didn't know last week that was going to happen. So you have to be, the unpreparedness, if that's even a word, is really difficult to deal with, to be honest.
Yeah, I can imagine you have to almost not attach yourself to a particular plan. Because if you really have in your mind, like, this is going to happen and this is going to happen, at any point it can get interrupted.
It can, but
by not feeling well.
Yeah, but you can't stop making your plans, can you?
Yeah.
And you can't put your life on hold. And I do feel, and I do know that some people with Crohn's disease actually don't leave the house very much. And that's all to do with the fear of it happening and you're somewhere and you need the toilet urgently, which is what happens a lot. So, my advice is don't put your plans on hold, but be prepared for them to change, because they
And
can change.
yeah, that kind of brings me to the point. So you have Crohn's disease. It is a challenge, but you decided to travel around the world, not kind of to many different places, and you've written about it in your recent book, Gutsy Travels. So why on earth did you decide to go traveling, having this chronic condition? And then why did you decide to write a book about it?
Okay, well, I probably was traveling when I was younger, before I actually was diagnosed. Not as much as young people do these days, because I didn't have a gap year, but I certainly was interested. The first trip I did really was when I was 19, and I went to university in America. I did an exchange program, and that's what kind of made it, wow, I want to travel. I want to see the world. It's exciting. I want to do this. So I wanted to do it. And then obviously I got a diagnosis, and I think, you've asked me, how do you fit that in with the family, or how do you? Well, obviously, I had a family, and I had my daughter was born. I was diagnosed very soon after she was born. Really, she was quite little.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was fairly traumatic, which I can probably talk about later.
Yeah, so you're navigating young babydom,
Yeah,
and
a serious
newly
illness.
diagnosed
Yeah.
Crohn's.
Yeah. So really, I actually started traveling probably later, I have to say, because I had a family. I was also working full time. I was always studying for another qualification. I had foster children. I was a respite foster carer, so I had a lot of children after my children had got older. So I was
Wow.
busy lady. But I also, I suppose, I carried on traveling when I could. And because I was in education and have been for 50 odd years, I had those lovely long holidays. That actually people tend to work much more through them now than previously. That it's not really a 6-week holiday, but I took advantage of that time to travel, so I was lucky in that respect. And then I think probably it was after my children, after they were older and they'd gone, and I really started traveling a lot. And obviously I was really sick still. So I used to write journals and blogs when I was traveling, just for fun. I used to put them up somewhere. I don't think anybody ever read them really, except my friends maybe. And I was having some quite wild adventures here, there, and everywhere. And then I decided I wanted to do a major challenge to raise money for a charity I was involved with. For Crohn's, it was called. It's now no longer in existence. Sadly, it folded for a lot of
Oh.
reasons, over lockdown mainly. But it was 2 young girls who'd set it up because their mothers had Crohn's disease, and they raised absolutely thousands of pounds for research. And I was so in awe of them. They're brilliant women, and they're now like in their 30s, I think. And they've got their own children, young children. So there were lots of reasons why it folded. But anyway, I was determined I was going to raise some money for this charity. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do a big challenge. I'm going to go and approach charity challenge, it was called. And I'm going to do something. And I decided to do a tough challenge, because I couldn't ask people to sponsor me or raise money unless I was doing something, I wasn't going to walk a few steps. So I took on this challenge to do Machu Picchu, but it was a bit more than that. It was actually climbing in the mountains above, so very high altitude. It was camping wild, and you had to walk every day for at high altitude. It's so difficult, I cannot tell
Yeah.
you. And I was so sick with Crohn's at that time. So there is a
Oof.
chapter in my book that describes that in quite vivid detail. And also many of us, we all got a Campylobacter bug, bug, I don't know what you call it, infection while we were there. So a lot of people were sick, and I was even more sick. And I kept thinking, it's because I've got Crohn's. It's because I've got Crohn's. And I'd gone from Peru to Lake Titicaca, and I was on an island with no toilets, staying with a family, couldn't speak the language, couldn't explain about the food. So that was a big challenge. So I thought, okay, I wrote a blog about that, and I published that it went in various magazines and different places. And then I did another challenge the following year, which was climbing 3 peaks in Transylvania. And yeah, that was it. I went to Albania first, and then did 3 peaks in Transylvania, raised more money. I raised about £13,000 in the end.
Wow.
Which is quite a significant
Congratulations.
amount.
Great.
They were very happy with me. But I thought, okay, now I've got all these blogs, I've got all this material, I can write a book with it, because I'd already published a book over lockdown. So I'd self-published a book called Lockdown Stories, and that was tales from all around the world of people I'd met about their lockdown experiences. So I thought, oh, okay, I'll do a second one now, and I'll do it about traveling, and I'll do it about Crohn's disease and how difficult it is. So I was trying to kind of hit various things, really. I was trying to spread the word about Crohn's disease primarily, but I didn't. That would be so boring and dull and terrible reading, wouldn't it? So I thought I've got to make it more interesting. So I'll talk about my travels as well. And then I wanted to. This sounds very corny, but it's true. I wanted to inspire people that if you've got
Yes.
anything that's holding you back or is difficult or whatever in your life, that you can do it. Just do it. Just take it by the horns and just fight it and do it. And that was my message, really. I
Yeah,
hope
that's
in the book.
yeah, it is. It is. I mean, having read the book, that is definitely what comes from it. If I personally had Crohn's and read your book, it would be very motivating and kind of it would manage to try and break my preconceived ideas of what is possible.
Yeah.
So I do want to ask you, what about your mindset allowed you to do this? Because it was a really tough, uncomfortable, perhaps sometimes embarrassing. You're
Very.
putting yourself in this situation, having a lot of fun and having adventures, but the challenge. So, what mindset helped you to take this on?
Well, I think I've always had a crazy side, without a doubt, much to my parents' anxiety and worry and everything when I was younger. And I've
I
got.
can just visualize you as a wild child.
Oh, I know, it's terrible. I still am a wild child.
Oh, great,
Yeah,
great. Let it out.
I think that I've always craved adventure, and I've craved different experiences for whatever reason. I'm a counsellor, so I should kind of know the answers to those questions, really, but I'm not. I'm not sure. But I have always craved adventure, and I think without going into too much detail, as a single parent of a child, and when I was ill, that was a massive struggle. So I've had this
Mm,
kind of. I've had to build this kind of resilience in my life, and I think that
mm.
also helped me to think I can do this, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. And somebody once said to me, "What are you trying to prove?" And I was a bit shocked, and I said, "I'm not trying to prove anything, to anybody. But this is me. This is who I am. This is what I like to
Mm,
do." And I think I probably, whatever setbacks I have, I will try and find a way around them. Through
I
them,
like
over
that.
them. Bit like that
Yes.
story about the bear hunt. Can't go over it. You can't
Yes.
go under whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
how I think that's what my mindset is. It's a bit of determination and a bit of recklessness and that kind of
Yeah.
thing, really, in my
Yeah. I
personality.
like that you I like that you mentioned actually that the thing that toughened you up in a way was single parenthood. Which in a way, like anyone would think that's not an adventure, but
Can't
that
underestimate
created
that.
I know, I know. If anyone has been one or knows one, that is something that does give you resilience and
Yeah,
grit and toughness. So,
most
and then
definitely.
once you've done something tough, you can then other things don't seem quite as daunting because you can always compare it
Mm,
back. Well, I did
exactly.
that
Yeah,
and I
I
survived
did
it,
it. I
so I
got
could
through it.
probably do that.
Exactly. Yeah, I
Yeah,
believe that
yeah.
too. I think as a so much older than anybody I know in the world, really. That's a message for people. You have to, and because I've worked with young people with special needs, and for a
Mm,
lot of years, that was always my message to them as well. Really, okay, so you're dyslexic. Okay, so you've got ADHD. Okay, but we've got to find a way around it. This is
yeah,
your barrier. This is your challenge. This is your struggle. But we're not going to moan about it. We're not going to use it as an excuse. We're going to actually go for doing what we can do and, living our best lives.
that's and you're the perfect person to tell them that, actually. It's not like
Yeah.
you're someone who's never had any challenges, telling
No,
them just to go do something.
no,
Um,
no,
but
because it's
that's
easy
a
to
really
do
good
that.
point. Yeah. I want to ask about limiting beliefs, and this is a perfect segue
Hmm.
because people limiting belief is kind of, well, I definitely can't do that. That's a thing that's not for me, and then someone doesn't even try,
Yeah,
and you're telling these children, you know, don't think you can't do it. Find a way around the challenge that you have, or how to do it with the challenge. So, what's your take on on how someone can think differently about limiting
Yeah.
beliefs that they have.
I think that again, I hate keep using the word advice because I shouldn't use that word, but I think it's
You
like,
can give advice. It's fine.
yeah, I suppose, I suppose so. I think it's like, do a bit at a time. Set yourself a challenge, however small it might be. What's a challenge for one person is not a challenge for another, and what is, you know what I mean? So me doing Machu Picchu was a big challenge, but set yourself a little tiny challenge and actually think about, maybe don't tell anybody that you're going to do it, because otherwise there's an expectation, and it doesn't have to be anything big, and then you can just kind of think about how you're going to reward yourself when you've done that, and when you've made it through that challenge. And then even if you don't manage to do it, don't beat yourself up about it. Just think, okay, well, I tried it. It didn't work maybe this time, but it might work next time, or I'll try a different way of coming at it. But it'll be okay. And I think when I was doing the Machu Picchu trek, God, did I cry lots. If you've read the chapter, I had to spend a lot of time crying, thinking, what am I doing? How did I think I could do this? What's wrong with me? Why did I think this was going to be all right? And actually what I found as well was, if you show that vulnerable side to you, people help you. They're kind generally. And I tell people all the time about Crohn's disease. I just do, because it's so much part of me, and so much, and I'm not trying to make excuses ever about it, but it's something people need to know about me, because if I'm out for dinner, they might poison me. Well, not poison me, but I might end up in hospital. So there's an ongoing joke, they send me now, what is it you can't eat again? Oh, remember
almost everything.
Yeah, remember when I last put you in hospital is another one that comes up sometimes. I'm like, hey, you didn't put me in hospital. Crohn's put me in hospital. I ate it. You cooked it. So I don't know whether I answered that question very well, but yeah,
no, you did.
limiting beliefs. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, what about this podcast is also for people kind of in my situation in life. We have young children or maybe teenage children who feel like life is just too messy and too busy, and they can't have an adventure. Actually, personally, this is me. Like, I wish I would be traveling and would take my children with me, but I just have this real barrier. I'm like, I can't possibly take this on.
I'm so glad you asked me that. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay. When I had my daughter, my mother said to me, I just remember it so vividly. She said to me, "That'll put some lead in your boots." And I don't know what that phrase even means, but it meant that'll slow you down a bit. Anyway, it didn't. And within 18 months, I was on an aeroplane going to Australia with my daughter. So I took her to Australia.
Lovely.
It was fine. She can't remember it, of course. We laugh about that now, because we went back when she was 20, and we took another picture of her outside the Sydney Opera House, and the other one had been her in a pushchair, just like this, asleep.
Sleep.
Yeah. And coming back on a plane from Australia without a stopover was a ridiculous idea of mine. And that was hard work. But she was actually quite an easy child. But recently I walked part of the Camino Way. And there were a lot of people walking the Camino Way. And I saw this couple, and it was so funny because they had 2 children with them who were probably under 5. And they had this kind of wheelbarrow type affair. And they were trying to drag the children along. They got rucksacks, Now those children, every time I saw them, because I kept going past them and then we kept catching up, all the time I saw them, the children were always crying. The parents looked like they were just thinking to themselves, why did we choose to do this as a trip with 2 under 5s? So that's an example of, don't do anything like that, because who's going to enjoy it? None of you. None of you are going to enjoy that experience. And they won't remember when you say, yeah, you walked the Camino Way when you were 3. Oh, did I? Yeah, you cried all the way. So I think you have to choose what you do, really, when you've got children. It's very different when you've got young children, very different when you've got teenagers, isn't it? Because you've got to do a whole different thing. But I think you just need to find things that are going to be adventures, but that you can do all together, but aren't going to stress everybody out, because there's no point in that. So you have to accept perhaps that climbing a mountain or doing the Camino Way, or flying to Australia maybe isn't the best holiday.
Not in the early years.
Not in the early years. And when they're teenagers, they don't want to do the same things as you do they? Really? Well, you don't know yet, but they don't.
Not yet. I'll get there.
They don't. And then they also get to that point where they don't want to come at all. And then you have this dilemma of, do I leave them at home, or do we drag them with us and make them come, or do we take some friends to
Yeah.
make it better? And so I think you have to fit your life then, really, don't you, around your children. You can't do anything else. So you
Yes.
accept that
Yes.
that's the time in your life where, that's what's going to happen. And there will be other times, or maybe you have a nice granny like me and you can leave your children with the,
Yeah. Yeah.
grandparents do an awful lot of caring of children these days, and
Yeah. Yeah.
you can go off and maybe have a little bit of an adventure on your own,
Yeah. Yeah.
with your
But
husband,
you
with your
see,
partner, whatever, or on your
yeah,
own.
our 3-year-old just wants to go to the jungle. He's constantly
Okay.
asking, I want to go to the jungle, because we had a trip to Borneo a long time ago before we had children.
Yes.
And
Wow.
we show our 3-year-old pictures of it, and he says, "Wow, where was I when you went here?" I said,
Yeah.
"Oh, you were still in Mummy's tummy, kind of as
Thing.
an egg in Mummy's tummy. I wasn't pregnant."
Yeah.
And then he always says, "Oh, I want to go to the jungle." So we're kind of hoping that at some point,
You
even when
can
he's quite young,
go.
we might take him to the jungle.
Yeah.
But I need to muster up the courage, because I do
Yes.
feel
That's
that's
a
a
big
scary
one.
thing to do
That is
with
quite
a
a
young
big one,
child.
yeah, and there's all the insects and
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff, and it being a bit hotter than they
Yes.
thought. I took a lot of children on a trip to Shanghai. It's not in the book, but I took an exchange of young people, and the youngest ones were 11, 12, I think they were. They were terribly homesick, and of course,
Mm.
the massive thing for them was adjusting to. I took them, a village in Norfolk to Shanghai. Blew their mind. And of
Yeah,
course,
big culture
huge.
experience.
And it was the food, it was the language, it was the heat, it was it was the everything. But by the time that week was over, they were all like, they'll never forget that experience. But at the beginning of the experience, I thought, what have I done here, bringing these children all this way? But yeah,
But
I'm
it might be
totally.
a formative, life-changing experience for
Mm,
them,
yeah,
really,
I think they will
to
never
open their
forget.
their minds to the fact that there's
Yeah,
different
it's
cultures and
totally
different ways of
different.
doing
Yeah,
things.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And different
yeah,
food and different everything. Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
But maybe going back to your challenges,
yeah.
because I want to learn about your grit and your determination.
Okay.
So obviously there were going to be times in your adventures when you may have had a little inner negative voice that was telling you, "I can't do this," or "Why am I doing this? This is too tough." What helped you get over those little moments?
Um, I don't know. I mean, the worst thing that ever happened to me was in Madagascar, and obviously you've
Oh
read the
yeah.
book. And
Oh,
I
go ahead and
I
explain.
was so yeah, I just knew that I was going to be very sick, and I always recognised the signs. Anyway, I'm in the middle of nowhere. Spent 10 days travelling down through the country from north to south. I knew there was no hospital. I knew there was no aeroplane, even though I asked for one. And they managed to get a doctor to me, and he came in after about 2 hours of me writhing about in agony, and he managed to erect. Again, no language problem. He spoke French. I speak a bit of French, not brilliantly, but we managed to communicate. When I'm in pain, I can't really talk much. And he just erected a coat hanger up above the bed where your mosquito net usually sits, and he just set up a drip in the room. And I was actually stuck to the bed then, and I was with a friend, and I was administered, all these drugs were given to me, and I was beginning to feel very woozy, and I went to sleep, and she went for a walk, and she didn't come back. She got lost. And I was thinking, I'm stuck to this bed with a coat hanger, because in a hospital you can just kind of wheel your drip around.
Wheel it around.
But I was
Yes.
actually attached, and I was thinking, okay, well, I have to pull this out. And I had a few moments of real panic, and I was thinking, well, I
Mm.
was also thinking, where is she? What's happened to her? What's going on? But I don't know. I think I just sounds so silly, but I just get on with it. I just, at the time as well, when you're in a situation like that and it's difficult, you just get on with it. But then there are lesser situations that are also equally as fraught. So I could be in England driving to work, and this has happened, driving to work through an unfamiliar place. Like, I live in Norwich, I
Yeah.
was driving through Kings Lynn, I need the toilet instantly. I'm in the car, it's rush hour, it's the morning. I don't know
Mm.
where there's a toilet, because you always, if you've got this illness, you're always thinking, where's the toilet? Where's the toilet? You go into a new city, and I'm like, right, I know there's a pub there, or I can go there, or there's a toilet there. But you're in your car and you're driving through a city where you can't stop, and it's a built up area and there's no toilet. And that is just a horrible thing to happen because you just
Yeah.
panic like mad. I mean,
Yeah.
apart from that, I have to stop buses. I've been in foreign countries where I've shrieked in Spanish, stop the bus. I have to get off, and they've gone, we'll be there in half an hour. You can use the toilet. No.
Nope.
So I have
Now.
to do it now. And so you have to be very, very strong-willed in a sense, really, because you can't be embarrassed. Because there's no time to be embarrassed. There's no, and you've got to tell people why, because they don't really get it.
Yes.
And that those are hard times. And if you're queuing for a toilet, for example, I have got a key, which is a accessible toilet key, and I will come out of a toilet and somebody will have a go at me and say, "Why were you in there? You're not disabled." Now that makes me
Oh, really?
furious. Yeah, and
Does that happen quite a lot?
it's happened not a lot, but it's happened 2 or 3 times. I was at a festival once where it
Mm.
happened. Somebody challenged me and said, "Why are you in this queue? You're not disabled." I was so angry, so I kind of turned on them really and said, "Do you want to know my details? I'll tell you in great detail about the state of my bowel, if you like, and then we'll talk about it." So, but the thing is, I'm very confident, and I know a lot of people,
Yes.
and I don't know where I've gained that confidence from, but I have got that confidence. And I just think,
Probably from doing all the stuff that you do. I think
mm,
confidence is something we earn from
yeah, it doesn't take
knowing
long.
we can do stuff.
Yeah,
And you have so much stuff behind you that you kind of think, oh, I've survived that, I've done that, I've done that.
yeah,
And that does make you confident, I
yeah.
think.
I mean,
Yeah.
just to give you a silly example, I took a photo last week. It was my birthday, and I was in London, and I went in the men's toilets because I couldn't get
Nice.
into, and I often do because I can't get into the women's if there's a queue or I need to go and
Yeah.
it's locked. So I quite often go into men's toilets, and there was an amazing mural in there which I took a picture of, and I posted it on my Facebook page, and I said, "Oh, this was in the men's toilets, and da da da," and someone said, "What were you doing in the men's toilets?" And
Shall I describe it to you?
I'm often in the men's toilets, and actually, if you have to
Yes.
go bypass a queue or something like that, you
Yeah.
do have a card that you can carry, which I stupidly don't, but you can get a card that says, I've got Crohn's, let me use the toilet. But obviously, if you're
Yeah.
in Shanghai or you're in Madagascar or you're somewhere, it's not going to mean anything unless you've got it translated into the language. And I
Yeah.
do that as well.
Yeah.
Actually, that's another little tip. I do carry a letter with me, a doctor's letter translated into the language of the country I'm going to, if I can do that, so that if in any
That's
event,
smart.
if I'm taken into
Yes.
hospital and I can't talk or I can't communicate, they know what drug to give me. They know what's wrong with me. They know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
really useful thing. I kind of decided on the way to
That's
do.
smart. I think that's smart. And that also can count for any chronic illness,
Absolutely.
actually.
Of course.
Anyone who wants to travel, but they have
Yeah.
something medically that's
Yeah.
amiss or
Absolutely.
a challenge, having that kind of plan, you've
Yeah.
planned for it so that you can maybe go and relax a little more because you know if it gets a bit pear-shaped, you've got that backup plan.
And also,
Now, that's interesting.
I was going to say, just your medication, never put it in the hold. And I mean, it's a stupid thing for anyone to do. You need to carry it in your hand luggage. But I've lost my luggage twice recently. Once a few months ago. Yeah, it's not that I've lost my luggage, just that it's not arrived where it's supposed to. And I'm somewhere in the country, and my luggage is somewhere else. It's either still in England, or it's in Singapore when I'm in Bali, or that's what happened recently.
That's a good tip.
Yeah,
good traveling tip for anyone who needs medication with them ASAP.
And always to take enough, because I made a huge error earlier this year where I just didn't count enough out of what I needed. And I needed a particular thing that I take that stops the diarrhea, which is a absolutely life-changing thing for me. That's only been discovered for me in the last few years. And I didn't take enough. And I was going, so I'd come back from being abroad and I was going straight somewhere else, which was a bit bizarre. But I was trying to phone my doctor and get it taken to a chemist in London, and it proved to be impossible because they didn't stock that drug. They could order it in for the following day, but I'd left it too late, so I didn't have enough with me, and I suffered. My own fault, completely my own fault. I become a bit blasé sometimes, a little bit, and then
you wouldn't think that with your challenge that you would become blasé. That's very interesting. You must be so confident.
Well,
I'll just wing it.
I don't know. I keep thinking, well, touch wood quickly. I've been sort of okay for quite a while now,
Yeah.
I don't quite know why, and that's the interesting thing with the illness. And I went to see my consultant. I know we've gone right off the questions here, but I knew I would. I went to see my consultant a year ago or something, and they measure this thing called a calprotectin level. And he said to me, how come yours has dropped? How come you're looking so good? How come it's... And I said, I don't know. I said, because I think it's because I stopped taking those horrible drugs you were insisting I take. Because I've had some bad experiences with drugs, absolutely, where I'm intolerant of them, and my liver failed, and I came off one biologic drug that I'd been injecting, and I had a really bad reaction to coming off it. So I don't take too much, really. But he said to me, well, what have you done?
Sounds sensible.
Yeah, I said, well, all I can think of in terms of a lifestyle change is that I've tried to stop eating sugar. That's a huge damage to so many bits of your body, particularly your gut. And if you've got an inflammatory condition, that's even more so. And it's very hard because I like cake a lot. Really do.
Don't we all? Cake is delicious.
But also I've taken
but I think
walking. I'm walking all the time. I'm long distance walking. I mean, I'm challenging myself in terms of, it's not like, can I walk 50 miles? But I can walk 22 miles. Yesterday I walked 12 miles. Absolutely, I could have walked another 12. So I'm fitter than I was when I had a family, because I didn't have time to do that. And what was the third thing? The third thing was just practicing being a bit calmer and a bit more mindful, doing a bit more mindfulness and doing a bit of sort of meditation, a bit of, I don't do yoga, but I should. I'd like to take that. A bit of breathing, that sort of thing.
Sometimes, I don't know if you know, but I'm a yoga teacher as well. But it sounds like just practicing mindfulness in the day is almost like yoga. You don't actually you don't have to necessarily do the physical poses. Yoga is broader than that. Yoga is being mindfulness in your breath and kind of in the moment. So you're kind of halfway there. You're kind of doing a bit of yoga in that. That's interesting. So actually, this podcast episode isn't necessarily for people with Crohn's.
No, of course.
But it is interesting that the things that have helped you, the lower sugar, more exercise, more walking, and more mindfulness, they're actually relevant to everybody. Everybody.
Absolutely.
So those are really good points anyway. But I kind of wanted to go back a little bit before we kind of not so much on the health advice, but one really interesting theme I read throughout your book, and you've mentioned it a bit today, is communication. You said everywhere you go, first, like you say, I got into a taxi and I had a conversation with the taxi driver about my condition. I told him this and that, which is great. You're not shy. And I think anyone, perhaps with a chronic condition like yours, openness, communicating straight away to the people around you, the situation, how to deal with stuff. And I think that's probably one of your traits that has allowed you to do all this traveling. The fact that you're so open, it's almost not a lonely disease for you. I'm sure for some people it could be lonely if they don't share it with anyone.
Completely.
But you share it.
And the trouble is, I mean, it goes back to that poor girl, and I've completely forgotten her name, the one who died of bowel cancer, who got a big campaign going about, look at your poo, or whatever it was she said. And everyone was saying, and it is great that we were talking about that sort of thing, because what I find is people don't want to talk about your gut or going to the toilet or diarrhea. It's not it's not a great topic to discuss. And people, so it's one of our most, it's a bodily function. Everybody does it.
Everybody does it.
But there's an embarrassment about it, isn't there? Which I don't know whether it's the same in other countries or not, really, but not sort of noticed.
Especially the English culture.
English culture, definitely.
And the funny thing is, we're not embarrassed to talk about children. So you can talk about a baby pooing. You can talk about a young child, At nursery, we'll be like, oh, has he had a poo today? And they'll be like, yeah, he had a poo. It's a very normal thing.
What did it look like?
Was it okay? Yeah, it was fine.
Yeah. I think the Germans tend to examine their poo, don't they? That's why they have those toilets that have like a shelf. I think
the Dutch have those as well.
They do.
I didn't realise why that was the case.
Why,
but
so it doesn't go down in the water, and you can have a look at it. But
true.
I think I did a really weird thing when I was not working, when I was being a volunteer for the charity, they asked me, we were raising money from various places, and there was a rugby club that raised quite a bit of money for us, because I think the chairman had a son with Crohn's, and they asked me to go along and collect the cheque because nobody else wanted to do it. And they said, would you go? And I went, yeah, I'll go to the rugby club, why not? And they said, but you've got to do a little speech, you've got to do a little talk, and I went, that's fine, I'm used to that, I'm fine with that. I got all my stuff ready to talk, and I went to the rugby club. You can imagine how they were all very drunk. They were all very, very drunk. And I thought, actually, what I've got to say isn't going to work. I'm going to have to change it a bit. I'm going to have to make it a bit more kind of earthy. So I changed it, and I went down a storm. They were all clapping. They were all giving me more money. I got asked back about 3 times. And I even went to the women's rugby club was a fun one as well to do. But through that, I was always hoping that, the more you talk to people and the more you talk to groups of people, and, the better it is, because people will learn to think, okay, it's not something not to be talked about. It's something that we have to talk about.
I think this is relevant for all chronic diseases, all other medical conditions. This is a little bit unrelated, but it's kind of related. So, I once saw a poster when I was at the hospital. So in the past, I had 2 ectopic pregnancies, pre-conceiving, and it was pretty awful, both of them resulting in surgery. But then I saw a poster when I was waiting in the waiting room, and it said, having an ectopic pregnancy is a really lonely thing. And in my head, I thought, well, of course it's lonely if you don't talk to anyone about it, because people do suffer miscarriages and ectopics and other chronic illnesses, not that they're the same thing, and they don't talk about it. And I think if you can get past that, and those things don't have to be lonely.
Sometimes they talk about it later, much later in life. Somebody, a good friend might say to you, "Oh, I had 3 miscarriages that I never knew about." It's like, you never told me. You never told me.
Yeah, and it was.
Why didn't you tell me? That must have been awful.
Yeah, and you share the problem, and then people can be there to support you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, but sometimes these things are difficult to talk about and very sad. And I mean, in the book, obviously, the final chapter is a really good friend of mine, and she had had a pancreas removed, which resulted in being fully diabetic, and that's recent, and she's having to explain. So she's at the airport with all her things she's trying to take through, and they're pulling them all out of her bag, and they're
the needles and the insulin.
She couldn't take this in a cool box because it was, anyway. She had a terrible time, and actually she also recounted to me, and I think it's in the book, that she'd actually asked for a wheelchair because she was quite fatigued. She was tired, and her husband. So nobody actually addressed her with any questions. They're trying to ignore her because she's in a wheelchair. So they didn't. They were talking through her to a husband, kind of thing, as if she didn't exist. And so, this is a whole wider thing, isn't it, really? You've got invisible illnesses, and then you've got very visible illnesses, and people think you can't think for yourself if you're in a wheelchair, or you can't think for yourself if, whatever. So it is a massive issue all told, isn't it, to be addressed somehow. So in some small way, I was hoping Gutsy Travels can start a bigger debate, really.
I think so. I think anyone who will read your book, especially if they've got Crohn's, but also if they've got some other invisible illness, maybe chronic fatigue, or maybe any kind of either IBS as well, or I know it's not the same thing. They will feel like, oh, if that's possible. Maybe with a bit of adjustment here and a bit more communication over there, I can do something a bit more exciting as well.
I hope so.
I think that's the great thing about your book.
I hope people do think that. But then some people might say, you're a different personality, or you're a different person. It's all right for you. Some people say that to me, actually, and I go,
really?
But you're a person. You're a different person, but you might do things slightly less extreme or something. But it doesn't mean that I don't have the monopoly on it. Adventure.
Yes. I mean, I'm a big believer in the fact, I think, limiting beliefs. That's why I asked about it before. I think we all have so many limiting beliefs, and I notice my own one. So when I think of something and I'm like, oh, I couldn't possibly do that, I'm trying to challenge myself. Why not?
Actually,
I could do that.
When you asked me that question, I didn't look back at my notes, but I remember what I'd written down now. I'm petrified of water. I'm not. I can't swim very well. I can swim, but not very well. I'm, one of these swimmers that goes like that with your head above the water. And not that I don't want to get my hair wet or anything. I just don't like water in my face or anything. But I've been snorkeling in Sri Lanka. I've been snorkeling in the Maldives. I went on a holiday to the Galapagos where every day we were snorkeling. And I was frightened, and I can't throw myself backwards off the boat like people do. I have to sort of slide in very carefully. And people say, "What are you doing?" And I say, "I can't jump in and go under the water because my head will go under the water and I'll be petrified." And I say to myself, "Well, what's going to happen? You're not going to drown. You've got a wetsuit on or a life jacket. You're just going to maybe get a bit wet." But I am still frightened. But I make myself do those things.
Yes.
And recently I thought, you know what would be really good if I just went for some good swimming lessons. And I actually learned to put my head under the water. Maybe I bought some goggles the other day because I don't mind snorkeling when I've got the thing, I get a bit panicky sometimes if a bit of water comes down when I'm sucking it through the tube. But I just thought maybe I've tried to do it and I have done it. But that's an example of something that I'm scared of, actually. But I will do it because I don't want to not snorkel. That makes sense.
Yes.
I mean, it's such a weird thing to choose, isn't it? But when you see that world underneath you and all those beautiful fish and all I wouldn't see that if I refused to put my head in the water with a snorkel on. I would miss out on a whole thing. So
this is something I'm looking forward to do with our two children when they're perhaps a little bit older, because we have a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old baby.
Oh gosh.
But and I currently have a limiting belief in my head saying, going on a holiday like that will be so difficult. It'll be so dangerous. And actually, I'm trying to think, I do eventually want to get over that limit and go, perhaps take family with me to help. Plan ahead a little bit and still enjoy something like that.
Definitely. When you've done it the first time, as long as you don't do something too difficult that's going to make it really hard, then it'll be easier to do it the second time. That's what I think. Once you've got over that barrier of, what is your limiting belief and what you're fearing, and you realise it didn't happen, or actually, something might happen. But then, as you say, I mean, going back to Madagascar, I remember thinking my children were going to kill me. They're always thinking, I know they're probably thinking, oh God, what's she going to do next? What is she going to do now? And I thought they're going to be cross with me. And my daughter said, well, that's the one thing you've dreaded all along, that you're going to get really ill when you're away. You got really ill and you're still here and it was fine and you dealt with it. And I thought, thank you. That's what I needed to hear, actually. Because if she'd said to me, you must never go again, Mum, this is stupid. You should not do these things. But I don't think either of my children would ever say that, really.
That's great. That's like taking the lesson, like a really positive lesson out of it, that you are so resilient. And even if things go sideways, you can manage. You can, hopefully. But it was a close shave.
It was a close shave. But I also think that I think one of the questions was, is there anything that does hold you back now or something? I can't remember the exact question. But I mean, just recently I had in my head that I wanted to go and do a trek in the Himalayas. And I thought about it so much and I looked at it so often. And then I thought, okay, I'm sort of 10 years older than I was when I did Machu Picchu. That was hard. Am I pushing my body too much? I've had another accident. I had an accident as well recently where I had a bad head injury. And so with altitude, that's not great, So I thought, no, I'm being silly. But what I've done is I have booked a trip to the Himalayas, but I'm just not trekking. So I'm doing
so you adjusted in a way.
My plan, So I will actually see a couple of the places I wanted to see, and I will see the Taj Mahal. At sunrise or whenever you do. But I'm not going to be beating my body up a mountain on that occasion. So I think it is just sometimes adjusting, a bit like with you and your children. It's adjusting what you want to do with what is possible. And sensible.
And finding a nice midway solution that isn't going to cause too much stress, but you're still able to put yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone.
I think so.
Well, I have some. I realise the time has flown, but have you got some parting words of advice for people who feel they want to do more in their life? They might want to go traveling, or they might want to start a business, or they they want to do a bit more, but they feel they have something holding them back, and they have those like strong limiting beliefs or this like voice that says,
Yeah.
"Oh, you can't possibly do that."
I suppose it is identifying first what those limiting beliefs are and sort of examining those, And if I was counselling somebody, I'd probably be exploring that with them and saying, trying to work out,
Yeah,
are they actually, are they things that are real, or are they just, are they things that you could get over? And then I would do probably what I said at the beginning. I'd actually just challenge yourself with doing something small. I mean, okay, writing a book is, let's forget about traveling for a minute, writing a book. I never thought I'd write a book. So I wrote blogs and I wrote journals, and I started small really, and then I thought, I'm going to write a book now. So you can start small in what you're aiming towards doing or what you want to do, and then just kind of take those baby steps towards it, and then be very pleased with yourself with each bit that you've done, and then you can reach the summit really. Or if you don't, it doesn't matter. You've actually done some things. I mean, starting a business, I did go self-employed 10 years ago. And again, I'd been always having a salary, which I was completely used to. And then I decided to do something different. And that was quite tricky, because it was like I had to learn lots of new things about, how to do tax returns for a start.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And all kinds of things that I just hadn't thought of. And actually also in the world of publishing a book. I mean, I'm a great believer as well, and you learn things all the time, don't you? And it's good to keep learning. It keeps your brain active and everything else. And I've learned so much about how to publish a book. I really have.
Yeah.
2 years ago,
In the process.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of those things. It's also meant that I've met more people out of my sphere of work, because I was in education all the time. I've met a wider circle of people. I've learned more things. And it's made me feel very happy, very good.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether the book doesn't sell.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I've done it. I've written it.
Yeah.
One amazing thing happened yesterday. God, see, I'm going on. I on Facebook, this thing popped up. Now I was with my son in Barcelona 12 years ago, and we met a couple of people, just had chat with them, dinner. We must have swapped, Facebook, whatever. And she lives in Texas, and she's on Facebook holding up my book saying, I can't wait to read your book.
Oh, amazing.
That was a snap. Like, I met her for 2 hours, maybe max, 12 years ago.
Yes.
She's bought my book.
Yes.
And that was just amazing. So it's like connections as well, that when you start to do things that you might not have done before, you make these connections. And I mean, going back to traveling, you just make connections around the world, and that can't be bad, because you can get.
That's great.
Yeah. It's just so amazing.
And you never know where it may lead. You never know.
No.
That's wonderful. So you have the ultimate growth mindset. There's a concept. I think Carol Dweck is an author who's written about fixed mindset and growth mindset.
Okay.
And the people who feel like they have all the knowledge they're ever going to have, or maybe their mind can't change. Like, I'm a kind of person who's always going to do this. Whereas you're like, oh, I don't know this yet, but if I write a book, I'm going to learn about how to write a book. I'm going to give it a go.
And become a real expert and tell everybody about it. And pretend I know everything, which is a bit naughty. Because I don't.
No, it's really useful. So I think a growth mindset is fantastic. But I also want to ask. So I ask all the guests, because I don't want to come across preachy to anyone. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect.
Oh yeah.
So to keep it real, if you're happy to share, what is one of your imperfections?
Okay. Well, when I thought about that question, I thought, well, there's obviously lots. Where do I start? And I thought, okay, I talk too much. That's one of them. That's definitely one of them. I think actually one of the main things is I've got really high expectations of other people, and I sometimes get let down by that. And I think I'm probably like that because I've got high expectations of myself, and I've got to learn that not everybody is the same like that. And if they let you down, they're bad words to use, really, let you down, but that's how it makes me feel. Then I have to be a bit better about that, because, things happen in people's lives and sometimes things can't happen or whatever. God, I could go on forever about my imperfections. Yeah.
That's a good one, though. I mean, that's a very poignant one. it strikes me very personally because I'm just like you.
Are you?
I've never heard anyone say the same thing, but I completely hear what you're
Mm.
saying. Sometimes you have such high expectations and you just
Yeah.
expect other people to mirror the same level of
Mm.
effort or the same level of
Mm.
enthusiasm. And if that doesn't
Absolutely.
happen, you
Yeah.
get annoyed. But actually, you can't expect other people to be exactly like how you are.
No,
Yeah,
that's
so
absolutely
I
true.
hear you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's something
yeah,
to
yeah.
work on. That is definitely something to work on.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing. Yes, and I love the fact that you
Mm.
talk a lot. It's great. I was going to this podcast episode. I was like, we're not going to have any awkward silences, and that is great. So don't worry.
That's good. Yeah, I know. Somebody
But
said, "Oh, yeah." Somebody said to me, "You're probably an interviewer's dream," and somebody else said, "No, you're not. No, you're not. You definitely that you're definitely not."
it depends on the interviewer. If the interviewer
Yeah,
can cut through it a little bit.
yeah, that's
but
right.
but
Yeah,
on that note, the time is ticking by.
yeah,
Can you tell listeners how they can find your book? Perhaps
yeah.
say the title of your book again. Where can they buy it, and how can they follow your story if they're interested?
Okay. The book is called Gutsy Travels: Traveling the World with My Invisible Friend. Joanna O'Donoghue is my full name. I do have a website, which is joanna'odonoghue.co.uk, but of course, there's a lot of spellings of O'Donoghue, so it's O''Donoghue. I also
And I'll put it in the show notes as
will
well.
you, and I
So
also have a Facebook author page and an Instagram page. I will send you those details. But also, you can, if you go onto my website, straight away there's a button you can click and you can order the book. It's published by the Book Guild. So if you Google the Book Guild, you could find it there. It's on Amazon, and it's also in major bookstores. So it's in Waterstones. Wow. Which is I'm very excited
well
about. It's quite
done.
hard to get in
Yes.
Waterstones, and WH Smith, which is obviously disappearing off the high street anyway, but you can get it in bookstores or online, or as an as on the ebook as well. It's
Yes.
in that
Yeah.
version, so you can do that through Amazon and and my website. Also on the website,
Fantastic.
I do put additional things as things happen. So I've continued to write, although the book's finished, I've continued to write blogs about some of the experiences I've had in the last year or so. So they're on my website, and I've just started my new book, which is a
Well done.
work of fiction. So I'm
Oh,
enjoying writing that
exciting.
because that's a completely different experience. But I don't know what that's called yet, so I can't talk
Okay.
about
Well,
that. It will be on
in
my
a
website.
year's time, get back in touch.
Yeah, because there will be some interesting sort of things in it. It's kind of based around a woman, so there's going to be some interesting experiences that this main character has in life, which will be
All right.
worth talking about, I think.
Nice. Super. Well, I'm gonna say thank you very
Thank
much for this
you.
interview. It was so good to chat to you about all your adventures,
Thank
and
you.
thank you for your words of wisdom and your kind of advice about just go and do it. I
Thank
love
you.
it.
That's great.
All
Thank you.
right.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to kind of spread the word and do things like this. So thank you.
That was Joanna O'Donoghue talking all about her latest book, Gutsy Travels, Traveling with My Invisible Friend. I've read this book and I really enjoyed it. It was such a lovely way of escaping my just current situation. I'm stuck inside the house a lot, caring for a baby, also doing this podcast, doing editing and things, which I love. But reading a little bit about Joanna's adventures was also really, really enjoyable. So thank you, Joanna. I advise anyone to just pick up the book. She says where you can buy it, get it on Amazon or from her website. I'll put all those links in the show notes. And I just wanted to share that, this is something that I want to be working on myself. I may have kind of the health and exercise behaviors pretty in my life, but I want to try to go past my own limiting beliefs on travel. So I'd love to travel with my 2 young children. I really crave going snorkeling or going to a lovely place, a bit more adventure. And I find it so difficult to imagine doing this with a young family. So it's something I'm working on, finding a way that we can have a little adventure, not letting my belief in the kind of fear of doing it limit me. So, blah blah blah, bit of a blabber, but I thought I would share that with you, and I hope you enjoyed that episode. As always, it would be amazing if you could give me a little rating. It's so easy. Just tap the little stars. 5 stars, perhaps. It takes about a minute, even less on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or a comment on YouTube. And wherever you listen to this, please follow the show. That's greatly helpful. Well, for now, I will say goodbye, and you'll hear again from me with another episode next week. So, take care.